any step of the way, whatever I've learned along my journey so far, if another human or another animal is interested in participating in that, I'm always very open to give what I can.
Welcome to The Shift, where we search for ways to do better by thinking better.
Whether you're going through a major life change, looking to deepen your understanding of yourself, or hoping to improve your relationships with others, The Shift is here for you.
We're your hosts, Isla and Yashar, an endlessly curious sister and brother team.
As certified brain-based executive coaches with backgrounds in medicine and management, we combine the neurosciences, performance psychology, strategic planning methodology, and mindfulness techniques to empower your transformation from the inside out.
Join us in conversation as we explore better ways to show up for ourselves and each other. Welcome back, friends, to our part 2 of our Ask Us Anything. Last episode, I was on the hot seat, and now it's Yashar's turn for me to interview him. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. We've picked 5 to answer today. Are you ready, Yash?
I'm ready.
So the first question I'm going to pull from the list of questions is about your dog training. So the question goes, you've brought up examples about working with dogs in different podcast episodes. How does dog training relate to leadership? I feel
That's a
like that's a
great
good
question.
one.
I'm always eager to talk about dogs and dog psychology and training. So whoever asked that question, thank you so much. I would say that for anyone who's ever worked with dogs, you would know that there's a lot of similarities. But the way I would describe it is like many things I describe with a Venn diagram. And in one of those circles, there's love. And you can describe love however you like, with empathy, with understanding, with connection. In another circle, there are boundaries, there are rules, there are limitations, and, and sometimes very firm boundaries and limitations. When each circle meet in the middle, that's what I call leadership. Now, this is the exact same model I have in mind when I do leadership training with humans. I have to understand their story. I have to understand where they're coming from. I have to accept and believe in what they are feeling and the trials and tribulations and challenges they're working through. And we need to set up some boundaries and some limitations about how far we allow the mind to travel in a direction that's not useful, or what type of response are maladaptive, and how do we adjust for that. And when we can do that really, really well and bring it together, we have leadership. So in dogs, it's the same way. They're always looking to us, the humans, for that type of leadership. And I find with clients that I work with in the dog training world, often they're an extreme version of either one of those circles. Way too much of the dog lover without any sort of firm boundaries and understanding and clear communication tools, or way too much on the firm boundaries. And in fact, I would call it abusive at times, and not enough of the empathy and the understanding. Because dogs, like humans, are not created equal. Some of them have a lot of anxiety and you're much softer with them. Some of them have a lot of um, power and aggressive tendencies where you have to really make sure you are careful in how you move forward. And those clear boundaries and communication tools are an absolute must. You don't love an aggressive dog into shape. It doesn't mean that you have to hurt that dog either. And that's where that leadership comes in, to find the art and the science of how to have that communication and the tools necessary to move forward. And so that's what I would say are the similarities. And I think, I stumbled in this dog training world almost by accident. I've had a passion for it for, decades. But the part of the evolution where I'm lucky enough to be paid for the work that I do with these animals and their owners, I think has come to be because I get results fairly quickly. And so word of mouth has spread very quickly. And I've garnered more and more attention. And it's simply because of what I just said. It's a very simple framework that I've practiced for years with humans and now with dogs. And the final point to that is I've learned that training the dog is the easy part. It's training the human that actually takes a lot more understanding and skill and conversation, which absolutely my clinical work and my executive coaching work have come in full force when I have to impart that understanding and knowledge to the owners. So it all has come full circle, and it's something that, as you can probably tell, I'm very incredibly passionate about.
So tell me how
Okay.
this love has manifested into your life actually these days. How has it taken shape? What have you seen happen?
There have been so many beautiful occurrences that have happened with dogs in general since moving to Mexico. One of them being adopting our dog. She's one now, and she's taught me so much, even more so than I already knew before I got her, which has been a real treat. And unfortunately, there are many stray dogs that walk the streets, which is a very normal thing here. However, on one particular day, I did happen to stumble across a dog, and for whatever reason, this big black dog spoke to me in a way that the other dogs hadn't. And before I knew it, this dog was, roped and walking home with me, and I had nowhere to put it. I had no idea what's going on with this dog. Um, but bless my family. They've accepted my crazy request to hold on to this dog until we can find it a shelter. Ended up being a month in our house. Um, but when we found a rescue to help us, that rescue ended up having a really beautiful relationship with us, the people who run the rescue. I ended up volunteering there and through that have actually now been able to help other rescue dogs and other foster families with their dogs. And so this whole snowball effect of working with dogs, being with dogs, helping dogs, and then in turn helping the humans that help these dogs have taken up a big chunk of my life, and I'm incredibly grateful for that.
This kind of lends us to another question we have here, which is how do you support your community? I almost even want to ask it is so the question is how do you support your community? But lending from the question you just answered, I want to say, how did this find ways for you to support your community? How did, you know, this love of dogs and this connection you have lead you to creating new community, even?
Yeah, exactly. All of the above. It has. It's created a new community. It's allowed me to lend myself to various individuals and situations in a way that like I mentioned. So that's really true when it comes to the dog side of things, but also on the human side of things, it's been really nice to work with many different people in different ways. I found that the dialogue of getting to know people here and where particularly I live in Mexico has been easy and has been open. And so a lot of people are just interested. And so we end up learning a lot about one another. And when people learn that I used to be a clinician and now I have a leadership development company and I also have this dog thing going on, you know, people come up and ask questions and ask for support. And I'm very hard pressed to ever say no to anyone. And so even on the clinical side, people have wanted second opinions on blood work. People have wanted some insight on nutrition. People have wanted to know how to work through stressful situations. And whether it be an official sit down, okay, well, let me look at your blood work. Let's have a conversation. Maybe go speak to your doctor and ask for this, follow-up blood work, or it's been more out of a, can you just give me a few ideas on how I can change my nutrition? It's been something that I've really enjoyed, and I've noticed that people who require this information and who require this support have really enjoyed as well. So any step of the way, whatever I've learned along my journey so far, if another human or another animal is interested in participating in that, I'm always very open to give what I can. Um, it makes it for busy days sometimes and busy phone, but it's also highly rewarding, especially when results are delivered and people feel better or the animals are getting better. So that's how I find myself supporting the communities with whatever I've learned along the way. I like to, give out.
Another question we have here is how do you show up as a leader at home? Which I think is a really important question because how do these skills that we teach and you learn and we've done transfer to different relationships? We find that a lot because when we do work with people in business, we always indicate that it's not a silo. So how do you see that for yourself? As a parent, as a partner, how do you show up as a leader at home?
This has evolved tremendously in the last year and a half, 2 years for me, maybe even the last 6 to 8 months. And the reason it's evolved tremendously is because I've had to really check in and take a step back on how I view leadership and how, in many of the instances I just described with the community, I step in and take a leadership role where I'm imparting information, where I'm taking over, where I'm helping, and everyone's kind of listening into what I have to say about something. However, in the home, I've learned that the more I can actually leave more space for my wife, for my son, and be a leader by following, being a leader by hearing what they need more than what I think is needed, has transformed and transforming my relationships with both of them in a more interesting but very new for me way. And I'm being very vulnerable sharing this side of it because I think it's important that I've always had roles in my life, professionally and personally, where I'm I'm in the lead. I'm as I said, imparting a lot of information. I'm taking in a lot of information, coming up with solutions. And this new way of sitting back and allowing, my son to come up with his own answers as an 8-year-old and not having the mindset of, well, I know better because of X, Y, and Z reason, or allowing my wife to parent without my input, even though I think it should be done an ABC type of way, has really been interesting and has actually lend itself to more evolution in all of our relationships. And so my leadership shines through more as I sit back. And then when I do get involved, I feel like I have a clearer understanding of how to step in versus to jump in as soon as things get tough. Um, and so that's been a new piece for me, especially as my son grows older and becomes more independent and has more solid and understood opinions of himself and what he needs and wants. And it's not looking to mom and dad to always fill in the blanks.
Mhm.
So that's been an interesting change.
Amazing. Next question I have here is, what are you looking forward to? What are some new projects or hopes you have for yourself or the company?
That's an interesting question. The foundation of the work will never change in my mind. And by that, I mean it's always about people. It's always about building stronger relationships with oneself and the people you desire to have around you, whether that's your intimate circle or your larger community. It's always going to be about people, and we're always going to focus on people. Now, how it can change a little bit and manifest itself, well, this podcast being a platform, being one of those things, hopefully down the line, creating a book or some sort of literature that's longer and larger than our blog posts to support the work we do or the ideas that we share. And then finally, perhaps most interestingly for you and I would even say, Isla, would be if we have others working with us, because this has been a two-person team, a two-person mission from the beginning, and we've handled everything we've needed to from a coaching standpoint. It'd be very interesting to see if we do bring in other coaches, how that might change the dynamics and what other possibilities would arise when we have their people get involved and get behind our mission and add their interests and values to that foundation I spoke to.
And last but not least, this listener submitted the same question for me as for you. So we will end on that, which is, what are you healing slash working on within yourself?
The first answer that comes to mind for me is related to all of the questions that were already asked. And what I mean by that is there seems to be a lot of different and maybe not related avenues, exercises, things that are taking up my time. And as somebody who has studied many years to be a doctor, who thought that is the definition of the work that I will be doing for the rest of my life, it's been brought to my attention repeatedly, starting this company years ago, even that that is not the path I'm meant to be on. And so now with this dog training side of things, and I sit down and I speak with people and they're like, okay, you're a doctor, you have a leadership development company, and you're training dogs. And we all have a giggle. And so my healing or what I'm working on within myself is to be more open, to be more fluid, to be less constrictive in my idea of what the future can look like and what my abilities are and how I can contribute to my family and the community at large, and to use everything that I'm interested in and passionate about as a tool to magnify my impact, which is what I said this company's mission is, to build better relationships. And it's taking me a while to get there. And I can say it in words, but there are definitely days where emotionally I'm not as connected to that feeling as I want to be, and I'm working on. I build better relationships. That is my purpose. And now the way that comes out may look different and maybe even look confusing for many people. But my job, my healing is to make it make most sense to me. And so that I can step into my life and step into my purpose and step into my relationships as the version of myself that can impact the best. And I think that would be a great calling for me. And that is definitely where most of my healing can occur.
Beautiful. Anything you want to add before you close out this episode?
I think just that. If anyone's interested in any of the work that we have been doing or any of the conversations that have been had in various episodes, remember, as we always say, like, this is about you for you. You know, we do this work because we have the algorithms or the frameworks or the scaffolding for it, but we actually have zero answers. And we look to you to participate in your betterment. So together we can participate in the betterment of the whole, whatever that whole may look like. And so just gratitude for whoever's doing the work and whoever's listening into these conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening, friends. What shifted for you during this episode? We'd love to hear your insights. Write us with any questions, commentary, or episode ideas at theshift@mindshiftleadership.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, we would deeply appreciate a like and subscribe.
The Shift is brought to you by MindShift Leadership, a heart-centered, evidence-based, mindset-powered leadership company, empowering you with the training to prioritize mental health, inclusion, and performance optimization.